Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. If you didn't know, Gajin were asking for questions from the community on their YouTube channel so they can set up a Q&A for BVVD. Obviously, Vyacheslav Bulanikov, being the creative director of War Thunder, is a pretty important figure and generally does some Q&As every so often, and a lot of the questions there are kind of interesting. Many of them are standard stuff that you find from the community. So I thought we'd do a video where we go over some of the top posts, and then I'll kind of give Gajin's opinion that I think they have, and then I'll give my opinion. But also, at the same time, I thought I would do a video, which is this one, which is going over the questions that I would have, and things that I, at least personally, am interested in. So, let's go through them. And if you have any questions, I'd like to hear them, to be honest, in the comment section, so maybe I can pass them on, or at least get some insights on how you guys are thinking. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe and like the video. Let's get started. So the first question would be, have they changed their stance on the idea of completed game? And also reducing grind and many of these other things. So Gajin did kind of a video a long time ago now, it must have been at least a few years, maybe more, where one of the devs talked about the idea of what they see as a completed game. So if a player has finished the game, and the way that they said it is if they kind of finish a tech tree. And the idea would be, so if you grind through, let's say, the German tech tree from the ground reserve to top tier, they see that as a finished product. And for me, I have always kind of disagreed with that stance, and it seems like a very odd stance because of how much content they've added into the game for many different nations. And the idea that if you only play maybe nowadays 2 or 3% of the game that is seen as a completed game just seems really odd compared to pretty much every other game, where usually, you know, once you complete it, you get around maybe 50, 60, 70% of the content. Then if you really want to get everything, then you got to kind of push yourself for those extra hours. But in War Thunder, you know, obviously the game is very different. There isn't really an end to War Thunder because they constantly add stuff, and they also add new events and everything like that, but it just seems weird to me that that was the general stance. So I was just kind of wondering if they'd changed it, or even if that was the stance in the first place, was it misinterpreted? And if it is the stance, then how much of an issue that actually is for the whole game. The other thing, of course, is reducing grind. I think we can all agree with this. There hasn't really been a big reduction in the ground for a long time, and I'm kind of bored of them attaching rank status to the reduction of grind. We saw this with the Blue Water Fleet, where basically they added in rank 7, which is basically just another barrier to be able to get to top tier. Every time they add a rank, it is literally just an extra barrier you have to go through, because now you have to research more vehicles at the rank below in order to get access to the vehicles that are at the next rank. And this means you have to play different lines of the tech tree, and it just makes it harder to do. So the idea of adding in ranks as this kind of thing, which is positive, I've never seen. I've always seen it as a negative, because it reduces your grind efficiency, and also at the same time it reduces the fact that you can get to the highest echelon quicker, to be honest. So hopefully they can add in some reductions. We haven't had one in aviation in ages. I pointed out many times now where there are vehicles which are literally around like the 10 OBR, which take as much time to spade as the highest level 14.3s, which is just insane. It's just one of the biggest problems when it comes to the game, and it has been for the longest time, and it's put me off kind of spading out a lot of vehicles, because it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, do I want to get my head smashed in for this period of time when everybody else is either just using premiums, which are spaded, or they're just using the meta vehicles? Do I want to actually sit there and get my head caved in an air? And the answer is no. I kind of gave up with that a long time ago, and it would be nice if there was some kind of efficiency changes, or if there was some kind of reduction in grind, or maybe there could be something like different rewards for different tasks depending on what type of vehicle that you're using. That would be fantastic too, but unfortunately we don't have any of that. There's also the similar vehicle grind thing that we've talked about before. I'd like to bring that up, which is if you've ground out, let's say, an M48 in one tech tree, And does that mean that you could get a reduction on another M48 in another tech tree, or a Leopard 2, for example, or a Sherman or something like that? It doesn't even have to be a big discount, just something to try and get people expanded across the nations. Talking about nations and how, at least for me personally, I think it's very important for people to play well, you don't have to play the majority of nations, but I feel like getting stuck in one tech tree and getting stuck in the grind of that one is just going to lead you to not a very positive place in the mentality side of things. So for me, I think it's good to try and, push across the board, get a bunch of nations to rank 3, and then focus on events and battle pass stuff so you can kind of do it from there. I think that works really well. But what about the idea of nation research bonuses? We have everything else. We have nation backups. We have also type of vehicle backups too, but we do not get nation-specific bonuses. Why not have a week where certain nations get higher kind of research rewards than other nations? Why not have certain events, such as the Pages of History ones, which are usually linked to specific nations? What if they gave something like a prize, which was a percentage bonus to a specific nation? So instead of a 10% RP percentage bonus for 10 battles across the board, what if it was something like a 15% for a specific nation, meaning that there is a reason to kind of push through and give people a way of going through? They could even tie it into national holidays. Obviously, Gaijin does quite a lot of different events around national holidays, such as German Unity Day. Imagine if over the weekend, instead of just having a decal, you had a small percentage bonus in order to grind stuff out too. And this, to me, I think would be really fun, and would also be a homage to something that we used to have in the game, which was the ×2 daily, daily booster that you used to get every day in War Thunder. So every nation would have a ×2 kind of booster for one battle, and then on the weekend you had a ×5. This was before the kind of booster system that we had. This was way back in the day, but it was kind of an interesting one, and also gave people a reason to play each of the tech trees, where nowadays it's more focused around what people want to do. The next setup would be, with the new SAM systems coming in, and also the new AI models that they've added, is there a thought to improving AI in air maps so they're not just stagnant and generally sat there? So over the last maybe year or so, Gaijin have been adding in more and more realistic SAMs and also just realistic models in air modes. And this is pretty positive, because it means that you have different sets of targets. You also have era-specific targets, where previously you would have like Sherman tanks on, modern jet combat maps. It wouldn't really make a lot of sense. But nowadays you have the kind of SAM setups, you have the launchers, you have the radars, and it's actually really cool. But they don't really do anything. There's no animations, they don't move around, they don't really fire at anything, they don't really do too much. Now, there is a bit of a problem here, as we saw with the seed event test, where if you do make them fire at players, it kind of creates a bit of a problem, because when you actually fire upon players, what ends up happening is it's very easy to see where they're coming from, so therefore other enemy players alongside the SAMs know exactly where to go. But what if the SAM systems could fire at the AIs that are around the place to give just another kind of atmospheric addition? Maybe there could be some way of unlocking the SAMs, so you could be able to use them. Maybe if you win a specific tank battle on the ground, that means that the SAMs are safe to be used because they're not going to get artillery striked or something like that. Some kind of weird thing that you could set up there. And thematically, it would make sense that therefore they're able to fire. So you could have more of this kind of AI setup. I've always liked the idea of AI in War Thunder being background dressing. So instead of them actually taking a massive active part in the battle and something that can kind of destroy you and annihilate you, you are part of kind of the cog in the machine of the battle, and the AI is kind of the rest of the parts. So you, as yourself, affect the battle positively, and that means that you guys can win the battle, and that is super positive. But the AI itself is kind of there fighting the battle alongside of you, and you are able to kind of influence it either way. But at the end of the day, it comes down to your actions and what goes on with it. So if they could maybe add more systems to actually bring them alive, even if it is just them randomly shooting and doesn't have to shoot at players, just random things that could kind of set up, I think that would be kind of fun. There's also World War Mode questions, because they did say they were going to bring it back this year. It is now September, and basically, is it September? It might even be October. My God, it is October. Where has this year gone? But yeah, it is October now, so we have 2 months left of this kind of year. 3 months technically. And the simple question is, there hasn't been any World War Mode, and there hasn't been any news about it either. World War Mode was one of those modes which fell apart by the end. It was very rough and definitely not very fun to play, but at the end of the day, it is something that is, wanted by a lot of the community, especially people who never played it. It's amazing how many people who haven't played it want to give it a go, and how many players, who played it don't want to give it a go again. But the other part of it is its expansion into kind of late game content. One of the issues with War Thunder that has been around for a while is many people not thinking there is late game content in War Thunder, even though of course there is. It's just from the expansion of nations. But once again, trying to get people to grind them, that's the tough part. But the late game content of other games that we've talked about, such as Active Matter a few weeks ago, is actually really cool. And you have stuff like the Nexus raids that exist in Active Matter. We have this big kind of map with all of these different nodes on it. And if you win the raids on it, that means that you personally take over that area with your team, and then you can get bonuses from it. It's an idea that I think would actually be really cool in War Thunder, where basically with your squadron, you will have some challenges. If you complete in standard battles, then that means that you gain an area, and then you can gain the next area, and then gain the next area, and you can control an area, and maybe you fight other squadrons for specific points on the map. And I think generally that would actually be really cool. But I was just wondering if they had any thoughts on what that type of mode would even look like. And then also the last one is collaborations. We talked about it a few days ago. There are other games out there that are doing insane collaborations, so some which would be fantastic to see in War Thunder, but unfortunately are just never, ever able to do, unfortunately. So it would be really cool to see if they have any collaborations coming in the future, or ones which, to be honest, they would like to see. There are many that I think would be very cool. Even more recently, you have stuff like Battlefield, right, which is just recently coming out over the next week. But there are many other products that are also absolutely awesome from smaller game dev studios, or even movies or TV shows that would be fantastic to see represented in War Thunder. But unfortunately, it just doesn't seem to be the case. So hopefully at some point we can see those. It would be really nice if we do, but there is there's no look at it yet. So maybe they would have some plans that they could share with people on future content. So those would be my questions. Let me know what you would like to ask Guardian. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.